Mr. Hartman, you mentioned restoring voters' confidence in elections technology. Do you feel that there's investigation required into the suitability of the present technology? I'm curious to know how you feel specifically about the electronic voting machines, which have been shown to have a large number of security weaknesses. I'm also concerned, you mentioned statewide testing. Does that mean you don't have confidence in the ability of the local boards of elections to do their own testing?
Again, let's do a minute to each on the technology and electronic voting.
Okay, a couple questions there. I am confident that our equipment in this state is foolproof. We need to do a lot to reconfirm to voters that it is. These machines have been through rigorous testing protocols. We got to be very careful when we start talking about the potential for somebody hacking into a system until we've got some pretty specific evidence about it, because that continues to do damage to our system and it puts doubt in voters' minds. These systems and machines do work accurately, have been through extremely rigorous testing protocols. The second part of your question, what was the second part of your question?
It was on technology.
Versus relying on the local boards of elections who already are.
Certainly, certainly. The boards of elections run elections in the county. The Secretary of State has got to provide appropriate oversight and know what every board of election is doing. It is the Secretary of State's responsibility that state law is being followed and that every machine is being tested. And I'm going to take the extra step to conduct that testing and to release those results to the public for transparency.
Ms. Bruner?
It's incumbent upon the next Secretary of State, just if only to reassure fears that people have because of things that you've seen online from people at Princeton University showing how you can hack a Diebold machine. Although I will point out that that's a TS and what we use in Ohio is TSX. But the next question people ask is, well, what's the difference between the two models? And those are the kinds of questions that need to be asked so that we are looking at the machines from top to bottom to see what works, what doesn't work, what needs to be fixed, and making sure we fix it. And frankly, if we can't fix it, I've been a judge. I've made tough decisions before. We make the tough decision about what we do because we have to assure people and we have to guarantee them that the election system is safe, reliable, and trustworthy, or they won't participate. I don't know anyone who would want to play a game that was already rigged. I just don't know who would want to do that. And if we have people thinking that that's what the case is, whether it is or it isn't, it's our responsibility to make sure that we get that information out, that we reassure them, that we guarantee to them that they can rely on that they can rely on the system and that they don't need to fear and that they can vote freely.
Next question.
Yeah, hi. I'm curious about the process that you will engage in once you become elected Secretary of State, working with a legislature which clearly has not provided any oversight over the course of the last couple of years as relates to the election side of your business. Judge Bruner, what would be the legislative initiatives you would propose, statutory changes that you would propose? What would be the top on your list? One on the corporation side of the office and one on the election side of the office.
Again, let's do 1 minute for statutory changes.
Well, first of all, I've observed firsthand the relationship the current Secretary of State has with the legislature, and it's ironic that it's not a good one and they're even in the same party. My plan is to sit down with every member of the legislature who will sit down with me, whether they're Democrat or Republican, and forge a relationship with them so that they know that they can call on me for what they need and so that they understand what we're trying to do in the Secretary of State's office. So when they're trying to make changes, they'll think about the real people who are affected, not just in the Secretary of State's office, but at the boards of elections and the voters as well. One of the things that I would like to do, and it's less to do with the corporations and the business filings, but more to do with the issue of identity theft, is to work with the legislature to create a cause of action for a person to be declared a victim of identity theft. They would then be able to bring that court order to the Secretary of State's office, have it filed in a registry, and creditors and credit reporting agencies would be able to access that so that the person who's the victim would more easily be able to clear their record and without the difficulties that they faced up to this point in time.
Mr. Hartman?
Thank you for your question. On the business services side of the Secretary of State's office, I'm going to work with the legislature to make it so in Ohio that we can form corporations and LLCs online. The technology exists, and this is where government ought to be more of a partner to business and make it easier to do business, than it is right now. It's still too cumbersome. There's too much red tape. The time that you spend as a businessman interacting with government is time that you're not spending selling your goods and services. On the election side, we need to review House Bill 3 after the election. House Bill 3 is a convoluted piece of legislation, surprise, surprise, written by attorneys for attorneys. We're going to see what happens in the elections, where there were problems in that law, and we're going to take a full review of that law, and we also need to, this is going to be a priority of mine, we have got to make simple directives. What happens right now is a directive comes out of the Secretary of State's office, and it's 10 pages of legalese sent to every Board of Elections director across this state. We're going to comply with the law when I'm Secretary of State, but we're also going to break that 10-page advisory or directive down into a one-pager. Make it simple.
Next question, please.
I appreciate your bringing up directives because that is exactly my question. I do teach election law, and I found that many of the directives have not been published, even some before the recent posting of them. One of my concerns is that it's an administrative law practice at the federal level and at many states and in certain areas in Ohio law. Before an administrative law, here it would be a directive, becomes final, a proposal is posted for comment, notice and comment for...
May we have a question,
Yes,
please?
you're getting it. I have to, it's just so they can follow. Notice and comment, and then the office reconsiders and then publishes a final. Right now, the directives aren't published that way. I wonder if you would consider taking a public notice and comment period, which would also give your boards of election an opportunity to talk directly to the Secretary of State before these directives become final.
Both of you will have a minute for that, and Mr. Hartman first, please.
I think that transparency, I hope that in my comments that I've been clear in my desire for more transparency in the Secretary of State's office. People need a window to their government, to trust it more and to see what we're doing. I absolutely committed to working more closely with local boards of elections as Secretary of State than has been done in the past. Boards of elections want it. They want the Secretary of State to use directives and advisories to help them with their challenging issues. And I've been all over the state talking to over 50 boards of elections. They want more guidance. This is not directives coming from on high. This is working with local boards of elections to providing clarity. So absolutely, I support publishing these directives. These should not be hidden away. That does not provide the transparency that we need. And the commitment I've made to every Board of Elections member that I've talked to, Republican and Democrat, during the last year and a half, is that I've got an open door policy, and I want to know where we're not delivering and where we are not working cooperatively enough with local boards of elections.
Ms. Bruner.
Thank you. Candace, a couple points. House Bill 3 requires directives to be put on the Secretary of State's website within approximately 24 hours. Hopefully that's occurring. The purpose of directives is to allow the Secretary of State the flexibility to instruct the boards of elections on issues that would take too long in the legislative or the rulemaking process. Now, I am proposing to start a Voting Rights Institute in the Secretary of State's office to work with organizations such as yours to make sure that we are properly meeting all of the rights of citizens from whatever background, including the Americans with Disability Act. And my thinking with the directives is that the first and foremost, the Secretary of State needs to be talking to the boards of elections, needs to have a regular working group that represents all different rural, urban, large, small population, and the different types of machines. And that would be my first level of consultation. It may be difficult to extend that clear out so that there was a long period of comment because the directive gives the Secretary of State the opportunity to be quick and flexible so that we can actually implement elections that meet the needs of the people.